A child's footsteps don't always sound like footsteps when they arrive in fear. Sometimes they sound like hesitation itself, soft, uneven, trying not to exist. The station was already closing its day, but not its lights. They stayed awake in long white bars along the ceiling, humming quietly, like tired stars refusing to sleep. The city outside was loud in a distant, muffled way. Car horns, late vendors, restless engines, all blended into a low, ambient growl. But here it was different. Stillness lived here after midnight. Not a cinematic stillness made for film, a real one, imperfect and breathing. The platform glass barriers were clean, polished so well that they reflected more than bodies. They reflected moods. Have you ever noticed how glass remembers the atmosphere more than the people? Where are you watching from right now? Can you feel the chill of a place that stays open but empty? Rhea Carter was 6, maybe 7, but age felt irrelevant tonight. Childhood usually bends light into play. Tonight, it bent it into warning signs. Her shoes tapped gently against the marble-textured vinyl floor, a faint percussion of urgency. No running, no screaming, just movement that begged not to be questioned. The automatic doors didn't open for drama. They opened because sensors detected weight. And yet, when Rhea crossed that threshold, it felt like the air made room for her anyway. Her school coat was mustard yellow, too big for her frame, her hair in 2 small braids that had begun to loosen, tired from a long walk. A backpack clung to her shoulders like a small burden she carried with adult seriousness. She stopped just inside the station, one hand lifting slightly, not waving, not pointing, just lifting, like a child reaching for invisible confirmation. Do you think small instincts carry louder truth than big words? The station guard was inside his booth, drowsy-eyed but present, flipping through paperwork. A vending machine flickered nearby, half asleep, dispensing drinks to no one. The only person on the waiting bench was Ethan Hale, infrastructure engineer, 34, introverted by design, structured by profession, emotionally minimalist by habit. His boots were clean, but his jacket suggested someone who stayed longer than he should, not because he liked the place, but because his schedule demanded it. He was reading a technical schematic on his tablet, eyebrows slightly drawn, posture straight even while seated. He did not blend into the station. The station blended around him. You subscribed because you know stories like this must be heard. Stay till the end, don't skip. The real truth will connect every moment. If you leave now, you might miss the piece that changes everything. Sir? Rhea's voice was small, but not fragile, factual, like someone who had rehearsed bravery in the hallway of her thoughts before delivering it out loud. May I stay here? Someone is watching me. Ethan barely registered the first half of the sentence. He was used to predictable inputs. Children rarely entered his workflow. But the second half, it broke protocol. His eyes lifted, scanning the platform edge, then the glass barrier. Reflections shifted. Streetlights smeared long streaks of yellow across the panels outside. A shape was there, not defined enough to call a face, but intentional enough to call attention. Where do you think he was standing? Why do you think he didn't look away first? Rhea exhaled once, softly, like punctuation in a sentence she hoped would finally conclude. He waits behind the glass when I walk home. Today he walked closer. A child's single line can build a bridge adults forget how to construct. But tonight, the station listened. Ethan listened too, but cautiously, like someone trying to debug a moment without scaring the system. He walked toward her slowly, not towering, not crouching yet, simply leveling presence with calm. You're inside now, but I need to understand. When did you first see him? Rhea didn't look at him immediately. She looked at the glass. That is where the truth lived for her. You're wondering why she trusted reflections more than people, right? I'll connect it all soon. Don't skip. I don't want to guess wrong, she whispered, then added, louder this time, but still soft. But I don't want to walk alone with fear again either. Can you feel that silence between two choices? Have you ever stood between caution and responsibility? Ethan did, and without intending to, he sat beside her on the bench, leaving one seat empty between them, space that said safety without speaking it loudly. The tablet remained on his lap, glowing faintly but irrelevant now. "Ethan," he said after reading her name on the school tag clipped to her backpack, "you asked for the right reason. That matters more than certainty tonight." A distant train rattled faintly through the underground tunnel, not arriving yet, just reminding them both that movement would resume later. But the moment, it had already chosen its direction. Ethan had become the temporary guardian of a child's instinct without signing up for the role. Or maybe he had always been waiting for an unscheduled story like this to arrive. Do you think moments choose us before we choose them? Rhea finally leaned back, just slightly, shoulders lowering half an inch, the smallest physical healing beat you could measure in silence. Not because fear disappeared, but because belief had finally entered the station. The safest places aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they're the ones that breathe quietly beside you, letting fear sit down without demanding it explain itself first. The train station didn't try to comfort Rhea Carter. It simply continued existing in steady patterns. Fluorescent lights ran along the ceiling in symmetrical rows, uninterrupted, unwavering. The escalator sighed mechanically every few minutes, even when no one stepped on it, like a reminder that systems don't stop just because the world feels uncertain. The glass platform barriers reflected the outside world in stretched watercolor smears, passing headlights, drifting pedestrians, the occasional bus that still believed the night belonged to it. But reflections don't give answers, do they? They only give clues. Where do you think your eyes would go if you were her age, standing here, trying to decide where danger ends and safety begins? Rhea didn't wander far from the bench where Ethan Hale had sat with her earlier. She stood instead near a support column wrapped in brushed steel, one gloved hand resting behind her back, fingers tracing the cold metal absent-mindedly. She was watching the station like an artist studies a canvas before touching it, not searching for exits, searching for consistency. Her young mind was silently mapping everything. The rhythm of doors sliding open for no one, the way shadows bent when a car passed outside, how the overhead lights never flickered, but the street lights always did. Can you picture her doing that? Can you feel that contrast? The certainty above her head, the doubt beyond the glass? Have you ever watched a child study a world adults assumed they already understood? And Ethan, he wasn't watching diagrams anymore. He was watching her watch the world. He noticed how her small body leaned toward patterns instead of people, how her breathing synced unconsciously with passing lights, like she was testing which glow felt trustworthy. He saw that she didn't scan the station in panic, she scanned it in logic. Children don't always understand danger through vocabulary. Sometimes they understand it through distance, timing, repetition. And Rhea had clearly been attending that silent school for a while now, hadn't she? You're wondering why he's suddenly paying so much attention, right? Stay close. The story is listening back to you, too. Don't skip. The answers connect later. Ethan crossed his arms lightly, but not in defense, in containment, a posture that held calm rather than expressed it outwardly. He studied Rhea like a puzzle that didn't want to be solved too fast. She doesn't dramatize fear, she archives it. He remembered his own childhood, not trauma, not villains, just long afternoons where adults believed certainty belonged to them alone. He realized something gently, like snowfall you only notice once the ground is already white. Maybe adulthood isn't about having fewer fears. Maybe it's about having louder distractions. Do you agree? Or do you think children carry the sharper antenna, tuned to quieter signals? He stood slowly and walked toward the vending machine, purchasing a warm cocoa,
then another, smaller one. The cups steamed softly, two calm lanterns in his hands. He didn't announce companionship, he offered it through parallel action. He returned and placed the smaller cup beside her, leaving space again, not crowding her. "For you," he said simply. Not a rescue, not a grand gesture, a factual warmth. Rhea looked at it, then at him, then back at the cocoa, absorbing the moment in 3 frames, like a child editing life into sequences. "Thank you," she said. No trembling, no speeches, just acknowledgement. Can you hear the sincerity in short sentences more clearly than long ones? They sipped cocoa in shared silence, not the comfortable kind, the transitional kind, where fear isn't gone, but no longer doing the talking alone. A janitor pushed a mop cart in the distance, humming a song without lyrics, wheels whispering against the floor. A security guard passed near the glass entrance and glanced outside, hand resting casually near his radio. The world was normal again, but Rhea was still learning whether normal meant safe, and Ethan was learning that safety sometimes needs a witness, not an audience. "If you skip now," he murmured to the viewer in his mind, "you might miss the moment that explains everything. Because stories like this don't shout, they unfold."
Morning doesn't announce itself with noise. It arrives like a color grade slowly shifting on the world. The station woke gently, the kind of awakening that felt more like alignment than motion. Sunlight pressed softly against the glass barriers, turning reflections from stretched shadows into crisp silhouettes. The cold blue of night melted into warm steel tones, and the marble-textured vinyl floor revealed dust lines, shoe marks, and stories the dark had hidden. Commuters poured in, not like a crowd, but like overlapping lives. A mother adjusting a child's scarf, a student balancing headphones and breakfast, an elderly man tapping his transit card twice by habit. The station was alive again, but not healed entirely. Can you sense that? The child stays safe, the man stays attentive, but the air between them still holds questions no one has spoken yet. Where do you think unease goes when proof disappears? Does it evaporate, or does it wait quietly for belief to give it meaning? Ethan Hale was standing near the ticket counter now, boots grounded, tablet in his hand but dark and idle. The schematics were closed. The real work was open. His eyes followed every reflection on the glass, every movement outside, not because he expected danger to return, but because awareness had become the new default setting of his body. Responsibility doesn't always roar. Sometimes it recalibrates your breathing, doesn't it? Rhea Carter sat on the bench again, cocoa long gone, but the warmth of the cup still lingering faintly in her memory, like a saved file. She was watching the sunlight move across the platform, legs swinging gently, not restless now, thoughtful. Morning crowds returned, but her eyes still checked the glass occasionally, not panicked, trained. Have you ever seen a child carry vigilance like inheritance instead of fear? Ethan glanced at the entrance. The doors slid open again, and this time, someone came in who wasn't a shadow. Maya Trent, Rhea's mother, stepped into the station at 7:48 a.m., coat draped over her arm, eyes tired from a night shift at the postal distribution center. She didn't enter with panic, she entered with routine, but routine that carried exhaustion, the quiet kind that makes you trust the ordinary too quickly. She tapped her transit card, exhaled winter from her lungs, and scanned the platform instinctively for Rhea. And then she saw Ethan. Not the child first, the man beside the memory. Their eyes met through sunlight, and the audience's understanding shifted like a camera refocusing without cutting away. Maya's lips parted slightly. No shock gasp, no melodrama, just recognition entering the frame calmly. "Ethan?" she said softly, as though saying it louder might disturb the realism of the moment. Ethan nodded once, no theatrical pause, just confirmation.
The kind of confirmation that explains an entire equation without needing numbers. "Maya," he replied, "do you feel that shift?" The reveal wasn't loud. It was inevitable, like a thread you didn't know was being stitched since chapter 1. You're wondering why he didn't walk away, right? This is why. Stay close. The truth is settling in, not exploding. Maya crouched beside Rhea, adjusting her scarf, but her eyes kept flicking back to Ethan, trying to measure the distance between coincidence and meaning. "You two know each other?" the officer at the counter asked quietly, stepping closer but not interrupting. Maya smiled slightly, the smallest shake of a head like disbelief at the universe's timing. "Years ago," she said, "after the floods in Red Brook Valley, Relief Sorting Center, I managed outbound aid mail. Ethan built the routing system." Ethan didn't add details. He didn't need to. Maya continued. "His team helped mine track missing packages for displaced families. We worked 19-hour shifts for 6 weeks straight. Then life moved on. Life always moves on, doesn't it? But sometimes it circles back silently to check if belief survived." The officer nodded, understanding more than the station footage could ever explain. "So you stayed because you recognized the pattern before the face," he said. Ethan looked at Maya, then at Rhea, then back at the sunlight outside. "I stayed," he said gently, "because sometimes systems fail, but attention shouldn't." And the audience realized then this was never about a shadow. It was about someone who had once learned to watch for the missing before it was seen.
The station felt different now. Not safer, not because danger had vanished entirely, but because silence had softened. Doors still slid open with the same mechanical hum, escalators sighed the same way, and the sun poured light in the same steady columns. Yet something in the air carried less tension, as if the station itself had exhaled. Can you feel that quiet resilience? It's not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself with sirens or flashing lights. It just exists, patiently in the spaces between ordinary motions. Rhea Carter no longer lingered at the column or scanned the glass like a sentry. She walked along the platform slowly, observing the morning commuters with the same care she had used to observe shadows, but now without panic. A small smile sometimes flickered across her face as she noticed someone hold a door open for another, or when a child's dropped glove was returned by a stranger. These small acts of ordinary kindness became markers in her understanding of the world. She was learning that bravery wasn't about confronting fear head-on. It was about moving forward while carrying the memory of caution as a guide. Where do you think courage comes from? Do you feel it grows quietly the way her steps did now? Maya Trent, Rhea's mother, adjusted her life in small, deliberate ways. Work hours shifted, priorities realigned. Even the route home subtly changed so her daughter would never again walk alone in doubt. She smiled more in passing glances, relaxed slightly when Rhea bounded ahead, and whispered reminders like mantras rather than commands. There was no grand announcement. Healing often arrives this way, in imperceptible edits to routines, small changes that add up to a feeling of protection without theatrics. Have you ever noticed how care looks in quiet repetition rather than in spectacle? Ethan Hale didn't claim recognition. His work remained invisible in reports and forms, but the choices he made left ripples. He liaised with local transit authorities, improved surveillance layouts, and quietly advocated for safe waiting areas across the city. None of it bore his name. He had learned that attention itself was its own reward, that sometimes the most profound impact is measured by trust rather than applause. Observing him now, sitting on a station bench while Rhea and Maya shared laughter nearby, you could see the subtle ways his presence had reshaped ordinary space. Even small exchanges began to feel like signals of emotional repair. Rhea offered directions to a lost tourist at the ticket counter without hesitation.
Maya answered a colleague's worried text calmly, giving space for fear to pass without letting it linger. Ethan walked past groups of strangers without distraction, but with a vigilant eye on what had once been invisible to him. Every gesture, every choice formed a quiet choreography of belonging, a reassurance that danger may be unseen, but protection is tangible. They began to build new rhythms together. Shared walks between the train station and school became small rituals of reassurance. Rhea carried her mustard-yellow backpack less like a lifeline and more like a companion. Sunlight warmed her hair, brushing off the memory of long nights in shadows. Ethan noticed patterns in behavior and spaces that only a trained observer could, and he acted subtly, gently, as if tending to the world's balance rather than inserting himself into it. Maya's eyes softened when she saw her daughter's shoulders relax. Her own nights became less tense, and the station seemed less like a place of vigilance and more like a place where care could settle in unnoticed. The story now was no longer about chasing shadows, it was about the quiet, patient work of restoration, the creation of belonging through attention, empathy, and small, deliberate choices. And as the afternoon sun shifted, Rhea, Maya, and Ethan existed together in a space that had once been defined by fear, but now vibrated with a calm, enduring connection. The sunlight slanted low through the station's glass walls, painting long, gentle shadows across the marble-textured floor. The world outside moved at its usual rhythm, cars humbly draped in light, people crossing streets with the habitual precision of routine, buses sighing as their brakes whispered to the pavement. Inside, though, the station held a different kind of stillness now, not the tense hush of fear, nor the weight of uncertainty. Instead, it breathed quietly with a sense of completion, a soft calm that seemed to press gently against every surface, every reflection. Rhea Carter stood near the glass barrier once more, but this time she didn't cling to the steel columns, didn't flinch at passing shadows. The mustard-yellow backpack she carried now rested loosely on her shoulders, straps comfortable, unburdened. She tilted her head slightly, watching sunlight fracture into prisms across the floor, observing the world with curiosity rather than vigilance. Have you ever noticed how a child's posture can carry the story of what they've survived? How the simplest gestures can show courage being transformed into calm? Ethan Hale stood beside her, hands tucked into his jacket pockets. His gaze followed the reflection of passing people, not because he feared what might return, but because he had learned the value of noticing. He had watched enough shadows, paid attention to enough small voices, to understand that safety wasn't only in walls or systems. It lived in the quiet confidence of those who were seen and believed. He watched Rhea now, smiling just slightly, aware of the subtle strength she carried, a strength earned from moments the audience may have felt themselves, a quiet tether of resilience. "Do you see how the light falls differently now?" Ethan asked gently, his voice almost swallowed by the ambient hum of the station. Rhea looked up at him, then back at the sunlight hitting the glass. "It's not scary anymore," she said, her words soft but full of meaning. "It's warm, like it's letting me in." Ethan nodded. "Exactly. The station remembers that too, in its own way. Not what scared you, not the shadow, just the moment you were safe." They shared a silence that wasn't empty. It was filled with all the hours of waiting, watching, learning, healing. The station, once a place that had held fear, now held trust. Not imposed, not demanded, trust grown slowly, like the sunlight itself, reaching everywhere without force. Rhea shifted slightly and glanced at Ethan. "Do you think," she paused, thinking carefully, Do you think other kids can feel this too, even if they were scared? Absolutely, he said, but only if someone stops to notice, only if someone stays. She nodded, storing that idea in a pocket of memory that would carry her long after the backpack had been replaced, after the sunlight had shifted and the station had returned to night again. Safety, she understood now, was not a barricade behind her. It was something she carried forward, something you could hold without fear, simply by remembering what it felt like to be truly seen. Maya Trent appeared then, moving through the glass doors with that same gentle energy of a mother who had learned to balance vigilance and trust. She slowed when she saw Rhea and Ethan.
Together. No rush, no urgency, just presence. The three of them formed a small tableau. Sunlight, glass, reflections, and a quiet human bond that didn't need words to be understood. You both stayed, Rhea said simply, looking between them. You didn't just watch, you stayed. Ethan smiled, crouching slightly to meet her eye level. You were brave enough to ask, he said. That's what mattered. You carried yourself here. We just made sure the path stayed clear. Rhea's small smile widened. I can carry it now, she said, and she meant it. Not bravado, not imitation, but an understanding that courage was no longer just surviving fear. It was living beyond it, gently, with awareness. The morning crowds flowed around them, indifferent and ordinary, yet each face and movement now felt like a backdrop to the intimacy of healing. A man with a briefcase brushed past. A teenager adjusted his backpack. A street musician practiced quietly in the station's corner. All of it ordinary, all of it carrying life in its unassuming way. Yet for Rhea, Ethan, and Maya, every small motion was now layered with memory, with gratitude, with the subtle relief of knowing the world could hold both danger and safety, without erasing the lesson. Ethan's eyes lingered on the glass barrier. Reflections shimmered, commuters, sunlight, occasional passing car lights. He realized he had been watching more than children in danger. He had been watching how quiet moments could grow into protective patterns, how care could be extended without recognition. For years, his work had been about systems, engineering, data. Now it included something much harder to quantify: human attention, belief, and presence. Rhea tugged gently at his sleeve, breaking his reflection. You helped make it safe, not just here, but everywhere now, I think. Ethan looked at her and nodded. That's the hope, he said, that a single choice, to stop, to listen, to stay, can ripple further than we see. And in that moment, the station itself seemed to exhale with them. Light fell like a soft benediction across their shoulders. Shadows no longer frightened. The city beyond remained imperfect, bustling, unpredictable, but inside, here, trust had been earned, belief had been established, and resilience had taken root quietly, without spectacle, without need for applause. There's another story waiting after this one, a missing echo that completes the feeling. I hope you'll listen to that one too. It carries the part this silence couldn't say. Another emotionally linked story continues after this one. You will later send the end screen video title. And here's why you won't want to miss it. The next story begins in a rain-soaked street where a family struggles against the elements, and a stranger's simple act, a choice made in a quiet moment, reshapes their entire day. Every glance, every decision, every pause matters. The emotional currents are immediate, relatable, and deeply human. It's the kind of story that carries the heartbeat of small kindness into the rhythm of ordinary life. The same heartbeat you've felt through Rhea's journey, now mirrored in someone else's chance encounter. Curiosity, warmth, and emotional depth all connect. Don't skip it.
because this continuation allows the silent threads of reflection and courage to weave through another life, another ordinary world, and another moment where attention matters more than instinct alone. Rhea stepped back from the glass, backpack slung lightly over one shoulder, and gazed outward at the city. "I don't have to watch for shadows anymore," she whispered. "I can just be." Ethan smiled gently. "Exactly. And someday, someone else will stand where you are and carry the same calm forward." Maya reached for Rhea's hand, their fingers intertwined without urgency, without ceremony, carrying trust and belonging silently between them. The sunlight shifted again, brushing the floor with warm streaks. Ethan stepped back, letting them move toward the doors together. Each step was ordinary. Each step was extraordinary in its quiet affirmation that safety, courage, and trust could be inherited in moments that didn't shout. And for the audience, the invitation remained unspoken but powerful. How did this story feel to you? Did it touch you differently than you expected? Where are you listening from? Would you follow another chapter like this? The station lights hummed softly as their reflections merged and separated with each movement, sunlight flickering on glass. And the story lingered, not as a shadow, not as fear, but as memory transformed into a living, carryable presence. Another story waits after this. When you click on the next video, a truck driver saw a family walking in the rain. One moment redefined their journey. You will step into the rain, into the quiet rhythm of choices that shape ordinary lives, into the subtle emotional turns that make courage and kindness tangible. Watch how one simple moment redirects a family and how the ripple reaches further than they ever imagined. The parallels with Rhea's story will become clear, connecting heartbeats across time and circumstance. Every second matters, every glance has weight, and the ordinary world becomes extraordinary when someone listens, believes, and stays. Don't miss it. And when you're ready, send me the end screen video title to link this journey seamlessly forward.